Naruto, God-level system author, Blue Water God. Chapter 156, Hard-mouthed Kushina. Seeing the evil smile on the corner of Reincarnation's mouth, Kushina was slightly nervous, but the expression on his face was still tough and unconvinced. Reincarnation looked at Kushina's pretending to be tough, and the smile on his face became more and more intense. If he didn't let Kushina beg for mercy today, he would change his name. He bowed his head and kissed Kushina again. But Reincarnation was not as simple as kissing when the evil hands made Kushina's cheeks blush, and the two white and tender arms hugged Reincarnation tightly. Kushina gasped, as if drowning and suffocating, reaching out and hugging Reincarnation, like grabbing the last straw. Kushina was not feeling well, and Reincarnation was not feeling well either, and Reincarnation, who couldn't help it, continued to tease Kushina, otherwise he would be the most uncomfortable. Suddenly, Kushina felt an incomparably strong pain that made her cry. "You big villain!" Kushina burst into tears. Reincarnation had a headache, but he didn't expect that Kushina, who was still very tough just now, would cry now. "Kushina, don't cry, it's all right, it's all normal, it'll be fine in a while," Reincarnation said helplessly. "Don't listen, you lied." Kushina shook her head, covered her ears, and said in a crying voice, "I said Kushina, don't you have any understanding?" Reincarnation asked helplessly. Kushina kept sobbing, ignoring what Reincarnation said. Mikoto and Tsunade didn't cry at the beginning. "Kushina, you are so embarrassing." Reincarnation stimulated Kushina, who had been crying, and the effect was surprisingly good. Kushina, who was crying, immediately stopped crying, then reached out to wipe it, and said proudly, "I was just joking, don't you think I really cried?" "You idiot was fooled by me." Arrive. Seeing Kushina's appearance, Reincarnation almost laughed, but he didn't reveal it. He felt that the tough-mouthed Kushina was quite cute. Although Reincarnation restrained himself from laughing, his expression still told others that he wanted to laugh. Even Kushina could see it. Immediately, Kushina pouted, looked at Reincarnation unhappily and said, "Do you want to laugh at me? I know you want to laugh at me." Saying that, Kushina's eyes were filled with mist, and she looked like she was crying to show you. "I don't mean to laugh at you, I just feel that you were cute just now," Reincarnation said quickly. He was afraid that Kushina would cry again. "Humphrey." Kushina snorted proudly. Reincarnation looked at the arrogant Kushina and pinched her nose. After a long time, Kushina couldn't help but move a bit. His eyes looked at Reincarnation. His eyes were a little shy, but he wanted to say something but stopped talking. Although Kushina was bold, she was still very shy about this matter. Reincarnation looked at it and smiled slightly. At this time, all men can understand. A fierce battle kicked off, and the moon in the night sky was shyly hiding in the clouds. Compared with Tsunade and Mikoto, Kushina was bolder, at least never deliberately suppressing her shouting. Even under the suggestion of Reincarnation, she became a female knight once, which made Reincarnation feel extremely comfortable. Reincarnation and Kushina fought for 3 hours, and Kushina, who couldn't hold on, begged for mercy, slumped on the soft big bed, and didn't even want to move. "Get up and clean first." Reincarnation took Kushina's arm and pulled her up. "Help me wash it. I don't have the strength at all." Kushina lay softly on Reincarnation, not wanting to move her fingers. "Let you continue to be brave." Reincarnation pinched Kushina's nose, then a princess hugged Kushina, picked up Kushina, and walked towards the bathroom. Kushina, like a lazy kitten, didn't open her mouth to refute. Leaning in Reincarnation's arms, she didn't even want to say more now. Seeing that Kushina was so tired, Reincarnation didn't mean to toss Kushina anymore. Now that Kushina had just gone through personnel, plus the madness just now, it was indeed unbearable to conquer. After cleaning, Reincarnation carried Kushina back to the room. At this time, Kushina was already asleep, and his hands were still clutching his arms tightly. Reincarnation gently put Kushina down, then changed the sheets and bedding, and then hugged Kushina and gently lay on the bed. Looking at Kushina's sweet sleeping face, Reincarnation put a smile on his face, hugged Kushina, closed his eyes, and fell asleep. The next morning, Reincarnation opened his eyes and looked at Kushina with his head resting on his chest and his beautiful white legs resting on his body, with a helpless smile on his face. "I didn't expect Kushina to sleep so dishonestly." Gently moved Kushina away, Reincarnation covered her with a quilt, and then left the room. After Reincarnation came out, he found that Mikoto and the others were already up. Mikoto and Conan were preparing breakfast in the kitchen, while Tsunade was sitting in the living room in a daze. Reincarnation walked over and patted her on the shoulder, and asked, "What are you thinking? You look dumb." Tsunade gave Reincarnation a roll of eyes when he heard the words, and then said angrily, "It's not you and Kushina, your voices are too loud. Are you afraid we won't hear? I didn't even get a good night's sleep." "Ha. If you really don't want to hear it, you definitely won't be able to hear it." After Reincarnation said something meaningful, Tsunade was speechless and just stared at Reincarnation with wide eyes. Reincarnation stopped staring at Tsunade, and went to wash up. After washing up, Reincarnation walked into the kitchen. When Mikoto and Conan saw Reincarnation walking in, their faces turned red. Seeing the blush on their faces, Xianchen smiled and whistled, then poured a glass of juice, then turned and left the kitchen. Seeing Xianchen leave, both Mikoto and Xiaonan breathed a sigh of relief, and the blush on their faces also dissipated a lot. Sister Mikoto, how do you feel about that kind of thing? Xiaonan asked Mikoto dazedly. Mikoto's face turned red again, and she tapped Xiaonan's head lightly with her hand. Don't ask this kind of thing, you kid. Wait until you grow up. Xiaonan heard the words and raised a small mouth, and said dissatisfiedly, I'm not too young now. But in my eyes, Xiaonan, you are still young. Mikoto patted Xiaonan's head with a smile. But this made Xiaonan even more unhappy, and ignored Mikoto in a fit of anger. She secretly glanced at Mikoto's huge size, and then looked at her own. The poached eggs that had just developed were indeed incomparable to Mikoto, which made Xiaonan very discouraged. One day, I will be able to grow very big, and then I will be so fascinated by Brother Chen. Xiaonan clenched his small fist and said secretly. After breakfast, Xianchen returned to the room with a breakfast, but Kushina had not woken up at this time, and was still asleep. Xianchen didn't bother her after seeing it, put breakfast on the table, and looked at Kushina's sleeping face. Chapter 157 Daily Life. Well, what time is it now? Kushina rubbed her eyes and asked Xianchen dumbfounded. It's almost noon now, you little lazy cat. Get up quickly. Xianchen reached out and pinched Kushina's face. It's all your fault. Kushina glared at Xianchen, then wanted to lift the quilt. Just as she was about to lift the quilt, Kushina suddenly remembered that she was not wearing any clothes. Kushina's face was embarrassed, and then said to Xianchen, you go out quickly, I want to get dressed. What are you doing out? I haven't seen any of your places. Xianchen said with a rogue face, obviously wanting to stay here. Yes. Kushina nodded, and then actually ignored Xianchen and started changing clothes, which made Xianchen stunned in place. When Xianchen came back to his senses, Kushina had already put on his clothes, which made Xianchen extremely annoyed. He was in a daze without enjoying the beautiful scenery, which was unforgivable. After Kushina got out of bed, she stepped gently, and the pain from her lower body made Kushina's brows slightly wrinkle. It's all your fault. Kushina glared at Xianchen before going to wash up. Blame me? Blame me for everything? Weren't you crazy yourself yesterday? Xianchen whispered. Fortunately, Kushina walked away and didn't hear it, otherwise he would definitely beat him to death. After washing up, looking at the breakfast on the table, Kushina picked up a cake and swallowed it, which consumed too much energy, and she was indeed hungry. Still hot? Just made. Kushina swallowed the food in her mouth and said suspiciously. Of course it's not just made, but it's almost the same as just made. I used time still for breakfast before, so it's hot now. Oh. Kushina nodded, and then said, it's really convenient for this time to stand still. If only I could learn it someday. Xianchen shook his head speechlessly. This is his Tensogun ability. It would be strange if Kushina could learn it. After eating, Kushina pushed open the door and walked out. Looking at Tsunade, Mikoto, and Conan outside, there was a slight rosy face on their faces, and then they returned to their usual appearance. Look at me. Do you want to ask me how I feel? Kushina sat on the sofa carelessly. That's right. I was about to ask you how you feel. How are you feeling? Tsunade joked with a smile. Che, you haven't felt it before. Do you still need to ask me? If you want me to say it, it's very refreshing, as if it flew into the sky. Tsunade's face turned slightly red. He didn't expect Kushina to be so bold. After all, she was a sturdy woman who dared to attack Xianchen at night, which Tsunade admired. Kushina, how dare you say such a shy thing? Mikoto looked at Kushina shyly. Anyway, the whole person is a villain. What's so shy? Kushina leaned against Mikoto. Get up quickly. You pressed me. Mikoto pushed Kushina. My body is still soft now. Let me lean on for a while. Don't blame me if you don't get up. A smile appeared on the corner of Mikoto's mouth, and then she reached out and started to scratch Kushina's itch. Ahahaha. Mikoto, let go quickly. Kushina's tears came out of her smile, but she was most afraid of tickling. Seeing this scene, Xianchen smiled slightly. No one helped, just watching the play with a smile. Mikoto, the big bad guy sees our jokes. Let's teach him a lesson together. Kushina said angrily, looking at Xianchen with a smile on her face. Okay. Mikoto nodded in agreement and let go of Kushina. White turned to one side, avoiding the hands of Mikoto and Kushina, then hugged the two girls together in his arms, staring directly at them. Now that the two of you are in my hands, what do you say? I have a headache. Xianchen said with a smile on his face. What do you want? Mikoto said in a trembling voice. How about you two sleep together tonight? Xianchen looked at Mikoto with a wicked smile. Don't think about it, Chen. You are such a badass. I haven't recovered yet. Go to sleep by yourself today. Kushina said tenderly. Mikoto nodded and looked at Xianchen with contempt. Why don't you let Sister Tsunade and Mikoto sleep together? Kushina suddenly turned the fire on Mikoto and Tsunade, who was watching the play next to her. Tsunade, who was beside the melon eaters, was slightly stunned, and then looked at Kushina angrily. Kushina, you are so nasty. Mikoto said angrily. Brother, I'm going to practice. Xiaonan looked at this scene, slightly envied, and then returned to the room to practice. I feel that my medical ninjutsu has made progress, so I will study it first. Tsunade also found a reason to slip away, otherwise, according to her understanding of Reincarnation, she might really do that. She and Reincarnation are okay, but serving Reincarnation with others, Tsunade is not so open yet. After Tsunade slipped away, Reincarnation jokingly looked at Mikoto and Kushina in his arms. Mikoto and Kushina struggled unwillingly, trying to break free from Reincarnation's embrace, but unfortunately, although their strength was not small, they were not enough in front of Reincarnation. After struggling to no avail, Mikoto and Kushina closed their eyes resignedly. Reincarnation smiled lightly, then let go of his hand and the two daughters. Jukes and I looked at Reincarnation blankly, and said in surprise, "You actually let us go." Mikoto also felt it was incredible. It would be fine if Reincarnation didn't bully them severely, but she actually let them go. What can you do if you don't let go? Do you really bully you once, or do you want to be bullied by me, Kushina? Reincarnation looked at Kushina with a smirk. Who wants to be bullied by you? I'm not a pervert. Kushina pushed Reincarnation away, stuck out her tongue at Reincarnation, and then took Mikoto's hand and ran away. Reincarnation touched his nose and felt that he was too kind, and he shouldn't have let the two of them go so easily. Wait for the two of you to kneel on the ground and beg for mercy, Reincarnation said viciously. When he came to the beach, Reincarnation sat quietly on the shore, his eyes were closed, and all the chaotic thoughts in his heart were suppressed, and then he took out the chakra of the nine-tailed beast, and the Uchiha fan, and began to study the mystery. If you want to become six paths, you still have to rely on these things. Looking at Hokage, whoever becomes six paths will have something to do with the divine tree. If Reincarnation wants to completely overcome the obstacles of Koing and Lu Dao, he also needs the help of Ten Tails chakra. Chapter 158 System Elf. Time is like water, 3 years in a flash. 3 years have passed. Compared with 3 years ago, Reincarnation has grown a lot taller, the childishness on his face has disappeared, and he has become more handsome. Hey, looking at my handsome face every day, I'm really worried for other men. What if those people commit suicide because of my peerless handsome face? Reincarnation sat on the beach, looked at his reflection in the sea, and said shaking his head. Not far away, Tsunade, Mikoto, Kushina, and Xiaonan all retched and looked at Reincarnation with contempt. They were so narcissistic that they had no friends. What kind of eyes do you have? Am I lying? You are saying that someone more handsome than me comes out. I promise not to screw his head off. Reincarnation said slightly unhappy. Let's go pick up shells. Don't pay attention to this narcissist. I saw a very beautiful shell there. Let's go and have a look. Kushina made a face at Reincarnation, then took Mikoto and Xiaonan's hands leave. Tsunade looked at it and chose to follow Kushina and the others. She didn't dare to be alone with Reincarnation. In the past 3 years, Tsunade has been bullied by Sun Xianchen a lot. Although Tsunade is also very happy about it, the symbolic restraint must be maintained. Reincarnation shrugged, then took out the fishing rod, and without hanging the bait, he threw it directly into the sea and began to sit and fish. At this time, Reincarnation's spirit has sunk into his body, and in his body, there are 10 groups of chakras that do not belong to Reincarnation himself. They are the chakras of the nine-tailed beasts, and the remaining group is the chakras of the Otsutsuki Hamura village. Reincarnation wanted to integrate the chakras of the nine-tailed beasts, but the chakras of the nine-tailed beasts seemed to be mutually exclusive and did not blend at all. It has been 3 years of tinkering, and Reincarnation has not tinkered with the 10-tailed chakra, the chakra of the nine-tailed beast. It seems that there must be something to carry, in order to be able to merge into the 10-tailed chakra. Now it seems that I can only go to the idea of playing the outsider golem. Reincarnation began to plan in his heart. Ding. The system has been upgraded, and the host is welcome to use this system again. Reincarnation was stunned, thinking that he had hallucinations himself. After being stunned for a long time, he entered the system space to see if it was auditory hallucinations. As soon as he entered the system space, Reincarnation found that the system space had changed a lot. It used to be the background of the endless starry sky, but now it has become a pink flower sea, which is very girlish. How did it become like this? Of course I changed it. A beautiful girl wearing a long snow-white dress and silver-white hair appeared behind Reincarnation, as if walking out of a painting. Reincarnation looked at each other with a slight daze. This girl was even more beautiful than Tsunade and the others. What's the matter, my master? I was stunned by my beautiful face, the girl said with a teasing. Reincarnation blushed, and then came back to his senses. He didn't expect that he would be stunned when he looked at the beautiful woman, which was really embarrassing. You're the system? You're really narcissistic. You're almost as good as me. Reincarnation, who had recovered, asked. The beautiful girl shook her head and said, I'm not a system, I'm just a guide created by the system, that is, the system elf. You can call me Xue, Princess Snow White. Reincarnation said slightly. My master, although I'm just a system elf, I still have a little authority, so please don't bully me, Xue said while biting her silver teeth. Okay, my system elf? You should also introduce, what exactly is the upgrade of the system this time? Xianchen looked at Xue Ji and asked, which was what he cared about the most. Actually, it didn't upgrade anything, just one more me. In 8 years, you actually created something like you. Xianchen's eyes widened and he said in disbelief. Xue Ji gritted her silver teeth. If it wasn't for the fact that the system elves couldn't hurt the master, she had to let Xianchen know why the flowers were so red. You look down on me? Xue Ji said angrily. No. Xianchen shook his head. I just don't believe it took 8 years for the system to create you. Actually, I don't know what the system has been upgraded. I'm just a system elf created by the system to help you. I don't know everything about the system. Xue Ji calmed down and said softly. However, the system is still those abilities for you. The system has not changed. There may be some hidden things that you need to discover for yourself. Xue Ji said uncertainly. Then Xue Ji, do you know the name of the system? What kind of system is this? Xianchen asked. Xue Ji shook her head in shock, expressing that she did not know. Hey, what are you doing? Although I'm a system elf, I also have human rights and refuse to be sexually harassed. Xue Ji avoided Xianchen's hand that reached out to her cheek. I just want to try the touch and see what you're doing. It's not silicone. You are made of silicone. Xue Ji shouted angrily. Don't be angry, I'm just joking. Xianchen smiled sarcastically. By the way, the system didn't deduct anything from me, right? The system won't deduct your things. Xue Ji gave him a contemptuous look. That means, I have 8 lottery draws now, and I have an extra 80,000 exchange points. Xianchen said excitedly. Xue Ji nodded. Then I'm going to draw a lottery. Xianchen called out the system panel and rubbed his hands. He wanted to see what he could win after holding back his luck for 8 years. Speaking of which, Xue Ji, what can you do? Can't it be a vase? You are the vase. Xue Ji didn't understand. Why couldn't this person say a good word, and couldn't be more polite in the face of smart, beautiful and lovely girls? If you need any help, you can come to me. I can help you complete it, and I can chat with you to relieve fatigue. Xianchen wanted to complain a lot after hearing this, but it didn't help much. But looking at Xue's beautiful face, Xianchen still showed mercy. Such a cute and beautiful girl is good for both eye-catching and chatting. It would be even better if she could chat naked. Fortunately, Xue didn't know the filthy thoughts in Xianchen's heart. Otherwise, even if she was destroyed by the system, she would have killed this bastard. Long lost lottery, here I come. Huh? Why is this different? Xue, why can't I see the prize now? Xianchen asked Xue. And if there is any problem, she must find Xue, the system elf. I don't know. Maybe the system has changed. The system didn't tell me. Xue shook her head, especially Xianchen's look of what is the use of you, and Xue was even more embarrassed, but she really didn't know what she could do. Forget it. Let's change it. Xianchen shrugged helplessly. In the past, he was still a little underwhelmed, but now he can't see the prize, and he has no idea at all. P.S. It's been a real dog these few days, and it hasn't passed, and it's uncomfortable. Chapter 159, Immortality, Dog Spell. After calming down, Xianchen shouted. The lottery starts. Now the mode of the lottery has also changed, and he does not need to do it. The previous touch has become the current voice control. This can be regarded as an upgrade. Staring at the pointer that was spinning wildly and couldn't stop at all, Xianchen complained. Isn't this upgrade the speed of rotation of the pointer? This speed should be able to distort time and space. Xue listened to Xianchen's complaints, and smiled lightly. The smile was very beautiful, but unfortunately Xianchen didn't pay attention at all, and his eyes couldn't be separated from the lottery roulette now. After a long time, the pointer stopped, and the prize pointed by the pointer also revealed its true colors. The pupil of the kaleidoscope writing wheel eye. Kaleidoscope writing wheel eye pupil surgery month reading. My luck is good. Here it is. Xue snickered twice, and then a streamer appeared in her hand, which disappeared into Xianchen's eyes. And for a moment, Xianchen felt that he had another pupil technique. Nice wool. Look at your schadenfreude expression. Xianchen said unhappily. He has an illusion created by himself, which is much stronger than you. Does you need this illusion? Not at all. To Xianchen, reading this illusion is a tasteless rib. Of course, even if it is tasteless, Xianchen will not give up the meat in his mouth. Do you also give out rewards part-time? Yes, in the future your reward will be distributed by me. Xue proudly held her chest out. Isn't it just giving out rewards? Look at your proud look. It seems like a great deal. Xianchen said with a blow. Xue became angry for a while, closed her mouth and looked expressionless, ignoring the irritating guy Xianchen. She was afraid that she would be killed by Xianchen. Looking at Xue who was dumb, Xianchen felt bored for a while, and then continued to draw the lottery. In the second lottery draw, the pupil technique of Amaterasu was drawn, and Xianchen suddenly exploded. Is it bad luck today? Xue, I already have Amaterasu. What's the use of drawing Amaterasu now? You can cancel this lottery and start over again. Xianchen rubbed his hands and said with a sullen face. Looking at Xianchen's appearance, Xue felt that all the bad anger accumulated in her heart had disappeared, which felt cool. After being silent for a while, Xue said after taking a good revenge on Xianchen, it is impossible to redraw the lottery. But this lottery can't be said to be useless, it can improve your amaterasu power. Okay. Rixianchan can only nod helplessly. It's better than nothing. Rixianchan comforts himself like this. Amaterasu's pupil technique is not weak either. People who don't understand this pupil technique are actually difficult to avoid. In fact, it is not as wasteful as in the anime. Actually, you can draw 5 in a row, so you have a higher chance of getting good things. Xue reminded. 5 draws? It's just 5 prizes drawn at a time, which consumes 5 draws, and there are 10 consecutive draws and 100 consecutive draws. Xue said softly. I still have 6 chances to draw the lottery, so come and try it. Xue, don't cheat on me. I won't cheat on you. Xue said dissatisfiedly. The 5-draw roulette wheel is larger, with 5 pointers on it, and there are more prizes, more than 30 in total. Let's start the lottery, Rixianchan said. And then Rixianchan closed his eyes and asked the gods and Buddhas to bless the sky. Is it useful to beg the gods and Buddhas in the sky? Why don't you come and beg me? Xue snorted proudly. Rixianchan stared blankly at Xue, as if he heard something extraordinary from his words. The dear Princess Xue. Can you do it behind the scenes? Rixianchan leaned close to Xue's ear and asked in a low voice. Humphrey. Xue snorted proudly, neither refuting nor admitting, making Rixianchan somewhat confused. At this time, the results of the lottery had come out, and Rixianchan couldn't care less about the bottom line, so he hurriedly looked at the prizes. The technique of the fireball, the 12 spells, the dog spell, the lock of the sky, the reincarnation of the dirty earth, and the body of a fairy. Come out. The skill of the fireball is a pit, and the others are not bad. Xue, as the reward for the immortal's body, can I choose the potion that can let others get the immortal's body? Rixianchan asked eagerly. Okay. Xue nodded, but she didn't have the appetite for Sun Xianchan. Phew, that's good. Rixianchan breathed a sigh of relief. He already had the immortal body, so it would be useless to give it to him. If it was a potion, he could use it for others, such as Xiaonan, who had relatively few chakras. At this time, Rixianchan looked at the other 3 rewards. There is no need to say much about the forbidden technique of reincarnation of dirty earth. It is a pity that Rixianchan has already learned it, so although this reward is very good, it has been abolished. The lock of the sky, the noble phantasm for God, also made Rixianchan's treasure of the king really have a noble phantasm. The last thing I saw was the dog spell. Seeing this spell, Rixianchan was very excited. The dog charm is the treasure in the cartoon Jackie Chan Adventures, and it is also one of the most heaven-defying treasures. There are a total of 12 spells, representing the 12 zodiac signs, and the most heaven-defying spell among these 12 spells is the dog spell. The ability of the dog talisman is immortality. It doesn't matter if it is immortal. Anyway, Rixianchan is immortal now. But immortality is very important. After getting the dog spell, Rixianchan is now like Kaguya Otsutsuki, immortal, unable to be killed, only sealed. Your luck is really good. Xue gritted her teeth and looked a little unhappy. Seeing Rixianchan being proud, she felt unhappy in her heart. No way, handsome men are often lucky. Rixianchan grinned. It's really stinky. Xue hummed softly, but even she had to admit that Rixianchan was indeed handsome. By the way, can the lock of the sky restrain Kaguya Otsutsuki? Rixianchan asked. Kaguya Otsutsuki should be a 2, right? In the past, she was called the goddess of Mao, and she should also be regarded as a god. It can bind Kaguya Otsutsuki, but I'm afraid it will be broken in an instant. The lock of the sky is only to restrain a with divinity, or a demigod, and Kaguya Otsutsuki is not a real god. Like Sanju Hashima, he is called the of ninjas, but is he a god? Rixianchan has already understood that this heavenly chain is placed in the Naruto world. It is a 2.0 broken chain, and it is useless at all. Didn't you say that the chance of getting good things in 5 consecutive draws is higher? I only drew 3 useless things this time. Isn't the dog talisman a good thing? Isn't the lock of the sky bad? It's just a little useless in the Naruto world. Are other things bad? It's cheap and good. Xue looked at Rixianchan, who was not greedy, with contempt. Alas, it seems that I have a phobia. Greed is the original sin, but I can't seem to quit. Rixianchan sighed and looked at Xue with vicissitudes of life. You still have another chance to draw a lottery, whether you still draw the lottery or not. Xue didn't want to see Rixianchan pretending to be forceful at all. What are you in a hurry? You must draw a lottery, and you won't give birth to a baby for me. Start the lottery. Rixianchan looked at the pointer expectantly, to see if he could get good things in the last lottery draw. Chapter 160, Reincarnation. Xue's gift. The pointer finally stopped, and the prize also revealed its true colors. Purple circle eyes. Reincarnation eye. It's actually the eye of reincarnation. Rixianchan looked at Xue in astonishment. You really have to thank me for being able to draw the eye of reincarnation. If it wasn't for me, you wouldn't have such good luck. Xue said quite arrogantly. Ah. Thank you so much for that. HMPH. No sincerity. I didn't see any sign of gratitude from you. Xue snorted and said dissatisfied. What should I do with the reincarnation eye I've drawn now? I already have a reincarnation eye. Do you want to replace it with a reincarnation eye? I tell you, I won't change it. Rixianchan skipped the previous topic and said. Xue shook her head and said, you don't need to change your eyes. You can have the abilities of Tensei and Samsara at the same time. Having the ability of 2 eyes at the same time, will my eye pattern change? Will it become Samsara eye? Or a combination of Samsara eye and Tensei eye? This is up to you. If you like Reincarnation eye, you can switch to Reincarnation eye. Let's forget it. Samsara eye is powerful 12, but I can't complement that circle pattern. Let's keep my Tensei eye. Xianchen shook his head and said he felt that using the Samsara eye would lower his appearance, and the Samsara eye was indeed not as good as Tensei's. In fact, it was not even comparable to the kaleidoscope writing wheel eye. A ray of light appeared in Xueji's hand and penetrated into Xianchen's eyes. Xianchen can feel that his pupil power is increasing sharply, and there is a kind of ability in his eyes, which is Xianchen's unique ability of reincarnation. After a long time, Xianchen opened his eyes, still the blue Tensei eye, but Xianchen could feel the difference, and now he can use all the abilities of the Samsara eye. Why do I only awaken one ability? My Tensagon awakens 2 abilities that belong to me alone. Xianchen said dissatisfiedly. Insufficient greed. Who told you that your Tensagon awakened 2 abilities? Isn't it? Xianchen looked at Xue suspiciously. His Tensagon did awaken 2 abilities. The invincible pupil technique of Gao Tanyuan, and the ability to manipulate time and space. Xue shook her head and said, of course not. Gao Tanyuan was awakened by you. The time and space manipulation was actually given to you by the system, but it was stored in your eyes. It can be said that it belongs to the ability of Tensagon, or it can be said that he doesn't belong to the ability of Tensagon. So that's how it is. Xianchen nodded, slightly stunned. By the way, Xue, can I devour the dog talisman and turn the dog talisman into my own ability? Okay, I didn't expect your awakened pupil technique to be so perverted. You are the son of the goddess of luck, Xue slightly complained. Xianchen smiled proudly. His ability to reincarnate eyes makes him very satisfied. This ability is also very abnormal. Xianchen's reincarnation eye ability is devouring, which can devour everything in the world to gain the opponent's ability to strengthen his body, including dead things. Xianchen can also devour. This pupil technique was named God Devourer by Xianchen, the technique of devouring the gods. Taking out the dog spell, Xianchen used the pupil technique to devour the gods and began to devour the ability of the dog spell. No matter how powerful the dog spell is, it is only a foreign object, and now Xianchen will turn it into his own ability. The swallowing speed is not fast, even a little slow. It took more than half an hour for Xianchen to swallow the magic power of the dog charm, and the dog charm completely turned into dust and dissipated. The ability of the dog talisman is immortality, 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 absolutely immortality, immortality from killing, starvation, poisoning, and so on. Now, after Xianchen devoured the dog spell ability, these became his own ability. It's also time to go out. Otherwise Tsunade and the others will be in a hurry. Xianchen said silently, said hello to Xue and prepared to exit the system space. Wait, Xue shouted as she looked at Xianchen, who was about to exit the system space. Is there anything else? Xianchen looked at Xue suspiciously. This is my gift to you. You must remember to come here to see me in the future, chat with me, don't forget me. I'm boring alone. Xue took out a gift box and handed it to Xianchen. Meeting gift. Xianchen curiously opened the gift box and saw 10 potions inside. Xianchen took out a bottle of green potion, and the breath of life filled with it made Xianchen instantly understand what it was. Immortal body? There are actually 10 bottles of potions. Where did you come from? These are probably worth 5 or 6 million exchange points. Xianchen's mouth widened. Humphrey, this princess still has some small privileges. As long as you please me in the future, maybe I will give you some precious things. Xue snorted proudly. I'm more arrogant than Jukes and I'll come to see you when I have time. Bye. Xianchen smiled and put away the 10 bottles of potion, thanking Xue very much in his heart. Seeing Xianchen leave, Xue smiled slightly, then turned and disappeared into the sea of flowers. Leaving the system space and returning to the real world, Xianchen had a smile on his face, and an eye-catching system elf was added, which was stronger than the system that couldn't hold back a word in the past few years. What did you just go for? Why did you disappear as soon as we turned around? Didn't you go to find some pretty girl? Jukes and I said jealously. That's right, I'm just looking for a pretty girl. She's much prettier than you. Xianchen kneaded the face of Jixin Ai, a vinegar jar, with both hands. La, I don't believe that someone is prettier than me. I am the most beautiful in the world. Kushina took Xianchen's hand unhappy and said proudly, I thought Chen was the most narcissistic person, but I didn't expect you to be not bad at all. Kushina. Mikoto covered her mouth and smiled. Kushina, didn't you feel shy at all when you said these words? Sister Kushina is too narcissistic. HMPH. You are clearly jealous of my beauty. Kushina snorted softly. This is close to Zu's red, close to ink black. You have been with Chen for too long, and your face is already very thick. Kushina. Tsunade sighed. Begging for a fight. You actually said I'm thick-skinned. Let's see how I deal with you, my beloved Tsunade sister. Kushina suddenly threw out Tsunade on the beach, and the two girls started fighting. Xianchen looked at the girls playing on the beach, and let out a tsk laughter, feasting his eyes. Pay attention to the image, it was seen by the pervert Chen. Mikoto said, covering Xianchen's eyes. See it as soon as you see it. He has never seen our body before. Tsunade said carelessly. That's right, Mikoto, you're making too much fuss. You dare to stop me from seeing the scenery, Mikoto, you are so bold. Accept my punishment. Xianchen laughed a few times, and kissed Mikoto's tender lips. Xiaonan looked at this scene, her face was extremely crimson, she quickly covered her eyes, and observed secretly from her fingers. If you like this audiobook, subscribe the channel for more videos like this. Leave some comment and let me know if you guys like this story, or you have a web novel you like and want to hear its audiobook. I will be happy to create them for you. Please like, share, and leave a comment on the video.